General Wezin's eyes widened as he watched the impossible unfold on the view screen. A primitive human fighter, piloted by one Captain Brian Howard, executed a series of maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible for such an inferior species. The Ventaxian scout ship, packed with technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities, exploded in a brilliant flash. Wezin's mandibles clicked in frustration. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Earth was meant to be an easy conquest, another notch in his belt of subjugated worlds. Instead, his invasion fleet hung in orbit, frozen in indecision. "Replay that sequence," he ordered, his voice a low growl. The footage rolled again. Wezin studied every move, every twist and turn of the human fighters as they engaged his scout ship over the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains. Their tactics were unorthodox, their piloting skills exceptional. How could this be? The general's antennae twitched as he made a decision that would alter the course of two civilizations. "Abort the invasion. We need more intel." His subordinates exchanged worried glances. Aborting an invasion was unprecedented, especially for the decorated General Wezin, known throughout the galaxy for his ruthless efficiency. "Sir," one of them ventured, "the High Command expects results. We can't just—" Wezin silenced him with a look. "I'll deal with High Command. For now, we observe and learn." Within hours, Wezin had established a clandestine observation post in the Colorado wilderness. Disguised as a weather research station, it housed a team of Ventaxian scientists and intelligence operatives. Their mission, to study these surprisingly capable humans up close. Meanwhile, on the surface, Captain Brian Howard stood at attention before a panel of stern-faced military brass. The debriefing had lasted hours, every second of the aerial encounter dissected and analyzed. "Captain," the lead general said, leaning forward, "we're putting together a covert team to investigate unusual activity in the Rockies. Given your recent experience, we want you to lead it." Howard nodded, unaware that this assignment would put him on a collision course with the very alien who now obsessed over his combat footage. As the days passed, Wezin found himself increasingly fascinated by human behavior and technology. These creatures, supposedly primitive, displayed an ingenuity and adaptability that both intrigued and unnerved him. For the first time in his long military career, he questioned the wisdom of conquest. Howard, too, felt a shift in his worldview as he led his team deeper into the mountains. The evidence they uncovered pointed to something far beyond their understanding. Alien technology, yes, but with a purpose he couldn't quite grasp. Tensions between humans and Ventaxians escalated with each passing day. Wezin's limited time frame from High Command ticked away, pressuring him to make a decision. Conquer or retreat? The fate of Earth hung in the balance. As General Wezin and Captain Howard unknowingly circled each other, both found themselves questioning long-held beliefs about their respective species and the nature of galactic civilization. The inevitable confrontation loomed, promising to change everything. And beneath it all, a current neither yet recognized, a grudging respect, a spark of understanding, the seeds of something that would challenge the very foundations of both their worlds. Captain Brian Howard adjusted his pack as he led his team deeper into the Colorado wilderness. The dense forest canopy filtered the sunlight, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The air was crisp and thin at this altitude, carrying the scent of pine and recent rain. "Sergeant Thompson, status report," Howard said, his voice low and steady. Mike Thompson fiddled with a handheld device, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Sir, we're experiencing some unusual electromagnetic interference. It's affecting our comms and navigation systems." Howard nodded, his mind racing through potential explanations. "Corporal Rodriguez, keep your eyes peeled. This interference could be masking hostiles." "Roger that, Captain," Alex Rodriguez replied, her grip tightening on her rifle as she scanned their surroundings. The team moved in formation, their footsteps nearly silent on the forest floor. Private First Class James Chen, the team's medic, kept close to Private Sarah Connor, who was engrossed in her tablet, analyzing the strange energy readings they were picking up. "Captain," Connor whispered urgently. I'm detecting a massive energy signature about half a click northeast of our position. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Howard raised his fist, signaling the team to halt. He was about to respond when a flicker of movement caught his eye. In an instant, his combat instincts took over. Contact, he shouted, diving for cover behind a fallen log. The forest erupted in chaos as plasma bolts sizzled through the air, scorching tree trunks and igniting underbrush. Howard's team reacted with practiced precision, returning fire and seeking cover. From his position, Howard caught glimpses of their attackers, sleek insectoid forms moving with inhuman grace. Ventaxians. His mind raced back to the aerial dogfight that had started all this. Now, here he was, face to face with the alien invaders on the ground. Rodriguez, suppressing fire, Howard ordered. Chen, Connor, flank left. Thompson, with me. As his team executed the maneuver, Howard noticed something odd about the Ventaxian squad. Their movements were coordinated, efficient, clearly the work of a skilled tactician. His eyes locked onto a lithe figure directing the alien forces. Even in the heat of battle, he couldn't help but admire the alien commander's prowess. Little did Howard know, he was facing Lieutenant Zara, General Wazen's most trusted intelligence officer. Zara had been dispatched to neutralize any human threats, but she found herself intrigued by the unexpected resistance. These humans are more capable than our report suggested, Zara clicked to her squad. Adjust formation, pattern Gamma 3. The firefight intensified, with both sides demonstrating remarkable adaptability. Howard's team held their ground, their conventional weapons proving surprisingly effective against the Ventaxians' energy-based artillery. As the battle raged on, Howard noticed a strange rock formation jutting out from a nearby hillside. Its angular shape and smooth surface seemed out of place in the rugged landscape. Connor, he called out, that formation, does it match the energy signature you picked up? Sarah Connor glanced at her tablet, eyes widening. Affirmative, Captain. The readings are off the charts. Howard's instincts told him they'd stumbled upon something big. Thompson, Rodriguez, cover us. Chen, Connor, we're going to check out that rock. As they approached the formation, it became clear that it was no natural phenomenon. Sleek lines and subtle patterns hinted at advanced technology far beyond human capabilities. It's some kind of entrance, Howard muttered, running his hand along the smooth surface. But how do we... His words were cut short as a stray plasma bolt struck the rock face. The air crackled with energy, and suddenly, a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the hidden facility. In an instant, all electronic devices, human and Ventaxian alike, went dead. The sudden silence was deafening. Howard blinked, momentarily disoriented. As his vision cleared, he saw the Ventaxian squad emerging from their cover, their weapons as useless as his team's. For a moment, both sides stood frozen, unsure how to proceed without their technology. Then, as if by unspoken agreement, they charged at each other. Howard found himself face to face with the Ventaxian commander. Zara's compound eyes gleamed with intelligence as she sized up her opponent. They circled each other warily, neither willing to make the first move. When the clash came, it was explosive. Howard's military hand-to-hand combat training met Zara's alien martial arts in a furious exchange of blows. Each strike was parried, each grapple countered. Around them, their respective teams engaged in similar contests of strength and skill. As the fight wore on, Howard began to feel a grudging respect for his alien opponent. Zara, too, found herself impressed by the human's resilience and adaptability. Their combat became less about defeating an enemy and more about testing each other's limits. In a moment of synchronized exhaustion, they both stepped back, breathing heavily. Their eyes met and a silent understanding passed between them. Without a word, they lowered their guard. The sounds of combat around them faded as both human and Ventaxian fighters noticed the standoff between their leaders. Slowly, weapons were lowered, and an uneasy quiet settled over the battlefield. The tense silence was broken by the whine of approaching engines. All eyes turned to the sky as a sleek Ventaxian shuttle descended into the clearing. The craft's hatch opened, revealing the imposing figure of General Wazen. Wazen surveyed the scene, his antenna twitching with interest. His gaze settled on Howard. recognition flickering in his compound eyes. "You," Wiesen said, his voice translated through a device on his uniform. "You're the pilot from the Earth Defense Force." Howard straightened, meeting the general's gaze. "Captain Brian Howard, United States Air Force." Wiesen's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "It seems we underestimated your species, Captain Howard. Perhaps it's time we talked." Howard glanced at his team, then back at the general. Every instinct told him this was a crucial moment, one that could shape the future of human-Ventaxian relations. "I'm listening, General," Howard replied cautiously. Wiesen gestured to the hidden facility entrance. "There is much to discuss, and I believe this location holds secrets neither of us fully understand. Shall we explore them together?" As both sides retreated to neutral ground to prepare for this unprecedented meeting, Howard couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and he was at the center of it all. In the fading light of the Colorado sunset, human and Ventaxian forces set up camp in close proximity, eyeing each other with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The stage was set for a diplomatic encounter that would test the boundaries of interspecies communication and potentially redefine the concept of galactic civilization. As night fell, Howard sat by a small campfire, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. Across the clearing, he could see General Wiesen in deep discussion with his officers. Tomorrow would bring challenges unlike any he had faced before, but for now, all he could do was wait and prepare for whatever the new day might bring. As dawn broke over the Colorado wilderness, Captain Brian Howard emerged from his tent, his uniform crisp despite the rugged conditions. The air was thick with anticipation as he surveyed the makeshift camp. His team bustled about, preparing for the unprecedented meeting that lay ahead. "Sergeant Thompson," Howard called, spotting his second-in-command hunched over a portable communications array. "Any updates?" Thompson looked up, dark circles under his eyes betraying a sleepless night. "Nothing concrete, sir, but I've got a bad feeling about this." Howard nodded, understanding his subordinate's wariness. "Keep at it. We need every advantage we can get." As he made his way through the camp, Howard caught snippets of conversation. Some of his team viewed the upcoming dialogue as a path to peace, while others saw it as an elaborate Ventaxian trap. He kept his own thoughts close to his chest, knowing the weight of responsibility that rested on his shoulders. Across the clearing, the Ventaxian camp was a stark contrast to the human encampment. Sleek metallic structures had been erected overnight, their alien architecture a reminder of the vast technological gap between the two species. Howard could see General Wiesen's towering form moving among his officers, mandibles clicking rapidly as he issued last-minute orders. At precisely 0900 hours, both parties converged on the neutral ground, a small meadow equidistant from their respective camps. Howard stood tall, flanked by Corporal Rodriguez and Private Connor. Across from them, General Wiesen loomed imposingly, his iridescent exoskeleton gleaming in the morning sun. "Captain Howard," Wiesen's translator device crackled to life. "I trust you slept well?" Howard met the alien's compound eyes steadily. "As well as one can before a meeting of this magnitude, General." Wiesen's antennae twitched in what Howard interpreted as amusement. "Indeed. Shall we begin?" For the next hour, human and Ventaxian engaged in a careful dance of diplomacy. Howard found himself both frustrated and fascinated by Wiesen's measured responses. The general expressed admiration for Earth's defensive capabilities, his tone a mixture of genuine respect and calculated flattery. "Your species has surprised us, Captain," Wiesen said, gesturing with a multi-jointed limb. "We expected a primitive world, ripe for conquest. Instead, we found warriors worthy of our attention." Howard leaned forward, seizing the opening. "And yet you came with the intention to invade. Why? What does Earth have that the Ventaxian Empire needs so desperately?" Before Wiesen could respond, a commotion from the Ventaxian side drew their attention. Lieutenant Zara approached swiftly, her movements fluid and purposeful. Howard felt a jolt of recognition. This was the alien commander he had faced in hand-to-hand combat. "General," Zara said, her translator rendering her clicks and chirps into crisp English, "I have the intelligence reports you requested. As Zara briefed Wazin, Howard found his gaze drawn to her. In the light of day, he could fully appreciate the alien beauty of her form, the graceful curve of her carapace, the subtle iridescence of her compound eyes. He quickly averted his eyes, chastising himself for the momentary lapse in focus. Wazin, however, had not missed the subtle interaction. His antennae quivered with interest, and a new calculation seemed to form behind his alien eyes. "Captain Howard," Wazin said, interrupting Zara's report, "I have a proposal that may interest you." Howard straightened, his full attention on the Ventaxian general. "I'm listening." "What would you say to a cultural exchange program? Selected individuals from both our species, living among each other to foster understanding and cooperation." The proposal hung in the air, its implications rippling through both camps. Howard's mind raced, weighing the potential benefits against the obvious risks. It could be a trap, a way for the Ventaxians to study human weaknesses up close, but it also presented an unprecedented opportunity to gather intelligence and potentially negotiate a peaceful resolution. "An interesting proposal, General," Howard said carefully. "But how can we trust that this isn't simply a ploy to infiltrate our defenses?" Wazin's mandibles clacked in what might have been a laugh. "A fair question. To show our good faith, I propose that I personally oversee this exchange. And to ensure transparency, I nominate Lieutenant Zara as the Ventaxian representative." Howard's eyes flicked to Zara, who stood at rigid attention, her alien features unreadable. He knew he should consult with his superiors, but the weight of the moment pressed upon him. This could be the key to avoiding full-scale war. "If I agree to this," Howard said slowly, "I would need to participate personally to ensure the safety and interests of my people." Wazin's compound eyes seemed to glitter with satisfaction. "Of course, Captain. I would expect nothing less." As the two leaders hammered out the details of the exchange program, neither was fully aware of the machinations occurring in their respective camps. Back at the human base, Sergeant Thompson worked feverishly to decode an intercepted Ventaxian transmission. The encryption was like nothing he had ever seen, but with Private Connor's help, he was making progress. "There," Connor said, pointing to a line of alien script on her tablet. "That sequence keeps repeating. It could be a key to the whole message." Thompson nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Good catch, Connor. Let's hope we crack this before the captain commits to anything we can't take back." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Ventaxian observation post, junior scientist Lyra hunched over a microscope, her antennae quivering with excitement. The human DNA samples she had been studying revealed something extraordinary, genetic markers that suggested an unprecedented capacity for rapid evolution and adaptation. "Dr. Zen," she called to her superior, "you need to see this immediately." As Lyra explained her findings to the incredulous science team leader, the implications began to sink in. This could explain the humans' surprising ability to challenge Ventaxian technology. More importantly, it could completely alter the Empire's approach to Earth. Back at the diplomatic meeting, Howard and Wazin shook hands, or rather, Howard's hand clasped Wazin's foreclaw, sealing their agreement. The cultural exchange would begin in 48 hours, with both sides scrambling to prepare. As Howard turned to brief his team, he caught Zara's eye. For a moment, something passed between them. A flicker of mutual curiosity, perhaps even a spark of something more. Howard quickly pushed the thought aside, reminding himself of the gravity of the situation. Little did he know that this exchange program would test not only the boundaries between their species, but also the limits of his own heart. As both humans and Ventaxians began their preparations, the Colorado wilderness held its breath, waiting to see how this unprecedented experiment in interstellar diplomacy would unfold. As dawn broke over the Colorado wilderness, Captain Brian Howard found himself standing at the threshold of the Ventaxian compound, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Private Sarah Connor stood beside him, her eyes wide as she took in the alien architecture that now surrounded them. "Ready, Private?" Howard asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty churning in his gut. Connor nodded, her grip tightening on her pack. "As I'll ever be, sir." They stepped forward, guided by a Ventaxian escort, whose iridescent exoskeleton gleamed in the early morning light. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a world beyond anything they had imagined. The interior of the compound was a marvel of technology and design. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, showing incomprehensible alien script and diagrams. Furniture that seemed to defy gravity hovered effortlessly, adjusting its position as Ventaxians moved about their tasks. Howard's mind raced, cataloging every detail. This level of technological advancement was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. If this was just their temporary base, what kind of power did their homeworld possess? As they were led to their quarters, Howard caught sight of General Wesen observing them from a raised platform. The Ventaxian leader's compound eyes seemed to gleam with an intensity that made Howard uneasy. Meanwhile, across the clearing, Lieutenant Zara stepped into the human camp. Her antennae twitched, processing the unfamiliar scents and sounds. Sergeant Mike Thompson approached, his posture stiff but professional. "Welcome to our humble abode, Lieutenant," Thompson said, gesturing to the array of tents and makeshift structures. "It's not much compared to your setup, but it's home for now." Zara's translator crackled to life. "Your adaptability is impressive. I look forward to learning more about your ways." As the days passed, both humans and Ventaxians found themselves subject to a rigorous schedule of activities designed to foster understanding between the species. For Howard and Connor, this meant a series of increasingly complex challenges set by the Ventaxian science team. "Your problem-solving skills are quite remarkable, Captain," Dr. Zen, the lead scientist, commented as Howard completed a multidimensional puzzle in record time. "Especially considering you've never encountered technology like this before." Howard wiped sweat from his brow, his mind still reeling from the complexity of the task. "We humans have a knack for figuring things out on the fly, Doctor. It's how we've survived this long." In the human camp, Zara immersed herself in every aspect of their daily routines. She participated in physical training exercises, marveling at the humans' endurance and adaptability. During strategic planning sessions, she observed their decision-making processes, noting the balance between hierarchy and individual input. One evening, Zara found herself drawn to the communications tent, where Sergeant Thompson hunched over an array of equipment, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. "May I inquire about your work, Sergeant?" Zara asked, her curiosity piqued. Thompson looked up, startled. He hesitated for a moment before responding. "Just routine communications maintenance, Lieutenant. Nothing too exciting." Zara's compound eyes focused on the screens, her highly developed senses picking up on patterns the humans might have missed. She said nothing, but filed the information away for later analysis. As the cultural exchange progressed, Howard found himself crossing paths with Zara more frequently. During a joint training exercise, he watched in admiration as she effortlessly scaled a sheer cliff face, her alien physiology perfectly adapted to the task. "Impressive," Howard called out as Zara reached the summit. "I don't suppose you'd be willing to share some pointers?" Zara's mandibles clicked in what Howard had come to recognize as amusement. "Perhaps, Captain, though I'm not sure your human limbs are quite suited for our techniques." Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of General Wesen, who regarded them with an unreadable expression. "Captain Howard, Lieutenant Zara, I trust you're finding this exchange enlightening?" Howard straightened, suddenly aware of the potential implications of his friendly interaction with Zara. "Yes, General, it's been an invaluable learning experience." Weazen's antennae twitched. "Indeed, I look forward to hearing your insights." As Weazen departed, Howard couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this exchange program than met the eye. His suspicions were confirmed later that evening when he received an encrypted message from Corporal Rodriguez. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice crackled through the secure line, "I've made a breakthrough with Ventaxian tech. We might have a fighting chance if things go south." Howard's pulse quickened. "Good work, Corporal. Keep it under wraps for now. We don't want to tip our hand too soon." As he ended the transmission, Howard noticed a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. He turned to see Lyra, the junior Ventaxian scientist, hurrying away from his quarters. Had she overheard? Howard's mind raced with the potential consequences. Little did he know that Lyra was preoccupied with her own earth-shattering discovery. In her lab, she pored over the results of her latest analysis of human DNA. "This can't be right," she muttered, her antennae quivering with excitement and disbelief. "The genetic markers, they're almost identical to the progenitors." As Lyra rushed to report her findings to General Wiesen, the delicate balance of the cultural exchange began to shift. Tensions simmered beneath the surface of every interaction, with both humans and Ventaxians acutely aware of the high stakes at play. In the command center of the Ventaxian compound, Commander Draz paced restlessly, his exoskeleton filled with barely held-back anger. "This farce has gone on long enough," he hissed to his assembled followers. "Wiesen has lost sight of our true purpose. It's time we took matters into our own claws." As Draz's supporters nodded in agreement, the seeds of mutiny were sown. The cultural exchange program, and perhaps the fate of both species, teetered on the brink of chaos. Howard, oblivious to the looming threat, found himself once again in the presence of Zara during a shared meal. As they discussed the differences in their dietary needs, Howard couldn't help but feel a growing connection to the Ventaxian lieutenant. "You know, Zara," he said, surprising himself with his candor, "when I first saw your ships in the sky, I never imagined I'd be sitting here, sharing a meal with one of you." Zara's compound eyes seemed to soften. "Nor did I imagine I would find humans to be such fascinating creatures, Captain." Their moment of understanding was shattered by the sudden blare of alarms. The compound shook with the force of an explosion, and chaos erupted around them. Commander Draz's voice boomed through the facility's communication system. "This exchange ends now. All loyal Ventaxians, report to your battle stations. The humans will be dealt with accordingly." As the facility locked down around them, Howard and Zara exchanged a look of shock and dismay. The fragile peace they had been nurturing had just been shattered, and the true test of their newfound understanding was about to begin. The true test of their newfound understanding was about to unfold in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Chaos erupted throughout the Ventaxian compound as Commander Draz's forces seized control. Alarms blared, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire and shattering equipment. Howard's military instincts kicked in as he assessed the rapidly deteriorating situation. "We need to move now," he shouted to Zara over the din. "Where's the nearest secure area?" Zara's antennae twitched as she processed the layout of the facility. "The research wing. It has reinforced doors and separate life support systems." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging panicked Ventaxians and human personnel alike. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with Private Sarah Connor and Lyra, the junior Ventaxian scientist. "Captain!" Connor exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. "What's happening?" "Coup," Howard replied tersely. "We're heading to the research wing. Stay close." The group made their way through the compound, the sounds of conflict growing more intense. They reached the research wing just as the facility's security protocols engaged, sealing off sections of the compound. The reinforced doors slid shut behind them with a resounding thud. Howard's relief was short-lived as he noticed the environmental controls flashing red. "Oxygen levels are dropping," he announced, his mind racing. "We need to find a way out of here before we suffocate." Lyra moved to a nearby console, her claws flying over the alien interface. "The life support systems are being overridden. I can't restore them from here." Howard surveyed the room, taking stock of their resources. "All right, we need a plan. Connor, see if you can access any communication channels. Lyra, focus on finding us an alternate route out of here. Zara..." He turned to find the Ventaxian lieutenant gone. A moment of panic gripped him before he forced it down, refocusing on the task at hand. Outside the research wing, Zara moved silently through the compound's maintenance tunnels. Her decision to aid Howard and the others took a toll on her, but she pushed aside her doubts. Her knowledge of Ventaxian security systems allowed her to bypass lockdowns and evade patrols. As she navigated the labyrinthine passages, Zara's mind raced with possibilities. She needed to find a way to restore oxygen to the research wing and secure an escape route. The main environmental control room was too heavily guarded, but there was a secondary system near the power core. Meanwhile, in the Earth camp, Sergeant Mike Thompson stared at his decryption software in disbelief. The Ventaxian transmission he had been working on for days had finally yielded its secrets, and the contents chilled him to the bone. "Rodriguez," he called out, his voice urgent. "Get over here, now!" Corporal Alex Rodriguez hurried over, wiping grease from his hands. He had just finished assembling another batch of his reverse-engineered hybrid weapons. "What is it, Sarge?" he asked, leaning in to look at the screen. Thompson's face was grim as he explained. "The Ventaxians, they're planning to use Earth as a testing ground for some kind of terraforming weapon. They want to reshape the entire planet for their own colonization." Rodriguez's eyes widened. "Christ," he muttered. "We need to inform command immediately." As Thompson relayed the information to Earth's military leadership, Rodriguez returned to his makeshift lab with renewed urgency. The prototype weapons he had developed suddenly seemed woefully inadequate in the face of such a threat. He began the process of mass production, knowing that every second counted. Back in the Ventaxian compound, Howard led his group through a maze of maintenance tunnels, guided by the faint glow of emergency lighting. The air grew thinner with each passing minute, and Howard could see the strain on his companions' faces. "How much farther?" Connor asked, her breath coming in short gasps. Before Howard could respond, a group of figures emerged from a side passage. He raised his weapon, only to lower it as he recognized the distinctive markings of Ventaxian scientists. A female Ventaxian stepped forward, her antennae quivering. "I am Vela," she introduced herself. "We oppose Draz's actions. We want to help." Howard nodded, recognizing the potential value of their assistance. "We need to reach the control center. Can you guide us there?" Vela's compound eyes gleamed with persistence. "Yes, but we must hurry. Draz's forces are everywhere." As they moved through the compound, Howard and Lyra took advantage of a brief respite to access a nearby terminal. The information they uncovered left them reeling. "Captain," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe, "these files, they suggest that humans share genetic markers with an ancient, highly advanced species. The implications are enormous." Howard stared at the alien script, his mind struggling to process the revelation. "If this is true, it could change everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy." Their contemplation was cut short by the sound of approaching footsteps. Howard signaled for silence as a patrol of Draz's loyalists passed by their hiding spot. As the group prepared to move on, a familiar figure appeared at the end of the corridor. Zara, her exoskeleton bearing signs of recent combat, approached them swiftly. "Captain," she said, her translator conveying a mix of relief and urgency, "I've secured a route to the control center, but we must move quickly. Draz's forces are consolidating their power." Howard nodded, a surge of emotions welling up at the sight of her. "Lead the way, Lieutenant." They encountered heavy resistance as they neared the control center. In a display of seamless cooperation, Howard and Zara coordinated their efforts, using their complementary skills to outmaneuver Draz's forces. Human ingenuity combined with Ventaxian technology as they fought their way forward. As they approached the final corridor leading to the control center, they found themselves pinned down by intense weapons fire. Howard's mind raced, searching for a solution. "Zara," he called out, an idea forming. "Your exoskeleton can deflect their energy weapons, right?" Zara's antennae twitched in affirmation. "Yes, but only for a short time." "That's all we need," Howard replied, quickly outlining his plan. Moments later, Zara burst from cover, her exoskeleton absorbing the brunt of the enemy fire. As the rebels focused on her, Howard and Connor flanked them, using their hybrid weapons to devastating effect. The opposition crumbled under their coordinated assault. They burst into the control center, finding Commander Draz and his inner circle waiting for them. A tense standoff ensued, with both sides acutely aware of the high stakes. Howard stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Commander Draz," he began, drawing on every ounce of his diplomatic experience, "this conflict doesn't have to end in further bloodshed. We can find a peaceful resolution." Draz's compound eyes flashed with anger. "Peace?" he spat. "There can be no peace with your kind. You're a threat to everything we've built." As Howard tried to reason with him, Draz's gaze darted to a nearby console. With lightning speed, he lunged for it, his claw poised over a pulsing red button. "If I can't have this facility," Draz snarled, "then no one will." Time seemed to slow as Draz's claw descended toward the self-destruct trigger. In that heart-stopping moment, Lyra and Sarah sprang into action. Their fingers flew across the alien and human interfaces, their combined knowledge of both technologies, allowing them to override the system in the nick of time. Draz howled in frustration as his claw met an unresponsive panel. Before he could react further, the doors burst open, and General Wazin stormed in with a contingent of loyalist forces. "Commander Draz," Wazin's voice boomed, "you are hereby relieved of duty and placed under arrest for treason against the Ventaxian Empire." As Draz and his supporters were led away, Howard felt a wave of relief wash over him. But even as the immediate crisis subsided, he knew that greater challenges lay ahead. The revelation of the Ventaxian High Command's true intentions regarding Earth loomed large, threatening to unravel the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Howard's gaze met Zara's across the room, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. They had faced death together, had seen the best and worst of each other's species. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Howard became acutely aware of the depth of his feelings for the Ventaxian lieutenant. Zara moved closer, her antennae quivering with an emotion Howard couldn't quite identify. "Captain," she began, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. Before she could finish, General Wazin approached, his expression grave. "Captain Howard, Lieutenant Zara, we have much to discuss. The events of today have changed everything." As they followed Wazin to a private chamber, Howard and Zara exchanged a glance. Whatever lay ahead, they both knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The future of human-Ventaxian relations hung in the balance, and their newfound bond would be tested in ways they could scarcely imagine. General Wazin's compound eyes flickered with a mix of emotions as he faced Captain Howard and Lieutenant Zara in the private chamber. The gravity of the situation greatly troubled upon him, his exoskeleton seeming to sag under an invisible burden. "Captain Howard," Wazin began, his voice low and urgent, "what I'm about to share with you will change everything you thought you knew about our presence here on Earth." Howard tensed, sensing the magnitude of the revelation to come. Beside him, Zara's antennae twitched with anticipation. Wazin took a deep breath, his respiratory spiracles flaring. "The Ventaxian High Command. They plan to use Earth as a testing ground for a terraforming weapon. Their intention is to reshape your entire planet for our colonization." The words hit Howard like a physical blow. He stumbled back, steadying himself against the wall. "My God," he whispered, his pupils dilating with the implications. Zara's reaction was equally visceral. Her exoskeleton paled, the bioluminescent patterns beneath it pulsing erratically. This can't be true," she stammered, her translator struggling to convey the depth of her shock. Wazin nodded grimly. "I'm afraid it is, Lieutenant. I've seen the plans myself. The coup attempt by Draz was just the beginning. The High Command believes that humanity is a threat to our expansion, and they've decided to eliminate that threat entirely." Howard's military training kicked in, pushing aside his initial shock. "We need to warn Earth immediately," he said, his voice firm with grit. "General, do you have any details on this weapon? Its capabilities, deployment timeline?" As Wazin shared what he knew, Howard's mind raced. He thought of Sergeant Thompson's decryption efforts, of Corporal Rodriguez's hybrid weapons. They had more pieces of the puzzle than they realized. "I need to contact Earth's military leadership right away," Howard said, moving towards the communication console in the corner of the room. As Howard relayed the crucial intelligence to his superiors, Zara found herself at a crossroads. She watched Howard, noting the purpose in his stance, the unwavering commitment to his people. In that moment, she made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. "I want to help," Zara said as Howard finished his transmission. Both he and Wazin turned to her, surprised by the conviction in her voice. "Lieutenant?" Wazin questioned, his antenna quivering with concern. Zara straightened, her exoskeleton shimmering with perseverance. I'm defecting to the human side. My knowledge of Ventaxian military tactics and technology could be crucial in defending Earth. Howard stared at her, a mix of emotions playing across his face. Zara, are you sure? The consequences... I'm sure, she interrupted, moving closer to him. What the High Command is planning, it goes against everything I believe in, everything we've worked for here. The intensity of the moment, the shared understanding of the monumental task ahead, ignited something between them. Before either could fully process what was happening, they found themselves in each other's arms, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss that defied the boundaries of their species. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Howard's eyes widened as he realized the implications of what had just transpired. Zara's antennae quivered with a mix of excitement and trepidation. General Wazin cleared his throat, drawing their attention back to the pressing matters at hand. While I appreciate the sentiment behind your actions, we must focus on the task at hand. Captain Howard, what is Earth's response to this threat? Howard nodded, pushing aside his personal feelings for the moment. They're initiating a global defense strategy. The reverse-engineered weapons developed by one of our engineers, Corporal Rodriguez, are being put into mass production. Weazen's compound eyes gleamed with interest. These hybrid weapons could be a game-changer. We'll need every advantage we can get. As they discussed strategy, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A junior officer burst into the room, his exoskeleton flushed with urgency. General Wazin, he exclaimed, we're receiving reports of massive fleet movements from the Ventaxian High Command. They've accelerated their invasion timeline. The room erupted into action. Howard immediately contacted Earth, relaying the new intelligence. Wazin began issuing orders to his loyalist forces, preparing for the impending conflict. Amidst the chaos, Zara approached Howard. Brian, she said softly, using his first name for the first time. There's something you need to know. Howard turned to her, noting the mix of fear and wonder in her eyes. What is it? Zara took a deep breath, her hand unconsciously moving to her abdomen. I'm pregnant. With your child. The world seemed to stop for Howard. He stared at Zara, his mind struggling to process this unprecedented development. But how is that even possible? Before Zara could respond, General Wazin interrupted. Captain Howard, I've made a decision. In light of recent events and my growing respect for humanity, I'm breaking ranks with the Ventaxian High Command. My forces will stand with Earth in this fight. Howard nodded, still reeling from Zara's revelation. Thank you, General. We'll need all the help we can get. As the facility bustled with preparations for the coming battle, news of Zara's pregnancy spread like wildfire. It became a symbol, a focal point for discussions about the future of human-Ventaxian relations. In the midst of this tumult, Lyra, the Ventaxian scientist, made a breakthrough in her research. She burst into the command center, her exoskeleton pulsing with excitement. Captain Howard, General Wazin, she called out, I've discovered something incredible about human DNA. It shares markers with an ancient, highly advanced species. This could explain why humans and Ventaxians are capable of interbreeding, and it suggests that humans might have latent abilities we haven't yet seen. As the implications of this discovery sank in, Earth's government scrambled to prepare for the invasion. Corporal Rodriguez's hybrid weapons were distributed globally, and training programs were hastily established. Howard, now promoted to major, found himself leading a joint human-Ventaxian special forces team. Their mission, to infiltrate the Ventaxian flagship and disable the terraforming weapon. As he briefed his team, Howard's gaze lingered on Zara. Her pregnancy added an extra layer of complexity to their already dangerous mission. But there was no time for doubt or hesitation. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. General Wazin took command of the combined Earth Defense Fleet, integrating human and rebel Ventaxian forces. As they prepared for the arrival of the main Ventaxian invasion force, tension mounted. In orbit above Earth, the first skirmishes between Wazin's loyalist forces and the incoming Ventaxian armada erupted. The night sky blazed with weapons fire, a prelude to the epic battle to come. On the ground, Major Howard led his team towards their waiting transport. As they prepared to embark on their crucial mission, he turned to Zara, their eyes meeting in a moment of unspoken understanding. The future of both their species and the child growing within Zara depended on their success. As the transport's engines roared to life, Howard steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The ultimate test of human ingenuity, Ventaxian technology, and the power of unity was about to begin. The transport's engines roared to life, propelling Major Howard's team into the chaos of the ongoing space battle. Through the viewports, they witnessed the apocalyptic dance of human and Ventaxian ships, plasma bolts and missiles crisscrossing the void. Howard gripped the shuttle's controls, his fingers tightening. "Zara, I need you on sensors. Guide us through this mess." Zara's antenna twitched as she interfaced with the Ventaxian systems. Multiple incoming bogies at 3 o'clock. Evasive maneuvers recommended. Banking hard, Howard narrowly avoided a stray missile. The shuttle bucked and groaned under the stress. In the cargo hold, the rest of the team held on for dear life. As they approached the Ventaxian flagship, its massive silhouette loomed before them, dwarfing everything else in sight. Zara's voice cut through the tension. "Brian, I've identified a potential insertion point. Docking Bay 17, starboard side." Howard nodded, steering the shuttle towards their target. "Good work. Team, gear up. We're going in hot." The docking bay's force field shimmered as they passed through it. Howard set the shuttle down with a thud, and the team sprang into action. As the hatch opened, they were immediately met with a hail of plasma fire. "Contact!" shouted Sergeant Chen, diving for cover behind a nearby crate. The air crackled with energy as both sides exchanged fire. Howard rolled out of the shuttle, his hybrid weapon at the ready. He caught sight of a Ventaxian soldier taking aim at Zara and fired without hesitation. The alien went down in a heap. "Move, move!" Howard ordered, leading the charge forward. They fought their way through the docking bay, Zara's knowledge of Ventaxian ship layouts proving invaluable as she guided them towards the terraforming weapons control center. As they battled through the corridors, Howard couldn't help but marvel at the effectiveness of their hybrid weapons. Corporal Rodriguez's reverse engineering efforts had paid off in spades. The guns packed a punch that caught the Ventaxian defenders off guard, allowing the team to push forward despite being outnumbered. Several decks away, alarms blared as the ship's commander received word of the infiltration. "Intruders detected in Sector 7. All available units, converge and eliminate the threat." Back on Earth, Corporal Rodriguez stood in the bustling command center of the Global Defense Initiative. Holographic displays showed the distribution of his weapons across key defensive positions worldwide. "Sir, we're getting reports from the Mongolian front," a technician called out. "The Ventaxians attempted a landing in the Gobi Desert. Our forces repelled them with minimal casualties, thanks to the new weapons." Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Keep monitoring all fronts. I want to know the second any of our positions are in danger of being overrun." As he coordinated the global defense efforts, Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder about Howard and his team. Their mission to disable the terraforming weapon was humanity's best hope for survival. In orbit, General Wezin's voice boomed across the communication channels of the Earth Defense Fleet. "All ships, execute maneuver Delta 7. Human cruisers, focus fire on their dreadnoughts. Ventaxian rebels, target their fighter squadrons." Wezin's unorthodox tactics were paying off. The invading armada, caught off guard by the combined human-Ventaxian strategies, suffered significant losses in the opening phases of the battle. However, as the conflict dragged on, the sheer numerical advantage of the Ventaxian forces began to tell. "General," a human officer called out, "we're losing containment in sectors 3 and 4. The enemy is breaking through." Wezin's compound eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "Divert all available ships to reinforce those sectors. We must hold the line." Aboard the Ventaxian flagship, Howard's team fought their way through increasingly heavy resistance. They had suffered casualties. Corporal Tanaka and Private Singh were down, their bodies left behind in blood-stained corridors. As they approached the weapon control center, they encountered a squad of elite Ventaxian guards. The ensuing firefight was intense, with both sides taking cover behind alien consoles and support structures. "Zara!" Howard called out over the din of battle. "We need a way past their defenses." Zara nodded, her antennae twitching as she interfaced with a nearby terminal. Her fingers flew across the alien interface, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered, and the elite guard's weapons sputtered and died. "Now!" Howard roared, leading the final push. They stormed the control room, catching the remaining defenders off guard. Within moments, they had secured the area. As the dust settled, Howard and Zara approached the main control panel for the terraforming weapon. The sheer complexity of the system before them was daunting. "This is worse than we thought," Zara murmured, her compound eyes scanning the displays. "The weapon is integrated into the ship's core systems. We can't simply shut it down without risking a catastrophic overload." Howard's heart made as he realized the implications. If we destroy this weapon, we might take out the entire flagship and everyone on board. As they grappled with this revelation, the situation on Earth grew increasingly dire. Major cities fell to the invading forces, and the planetary defense grid teetered on the brink of collapse. In her makeshift lab, Lyra worked feverishly on her DNA activation procedure. The initial results were promising, but the risks remained high. As she prepared to present her findings to Earth's military leadership, an aide burst into the room. "Dr. Lyra, we've received a transmission from Major Howard's team. They've reached the weapon, but are unable to disable it safely." Lyra's mind raced. "Get me a direct line to them. I have an idea, but it's risky." Aboard the flagship, Howard and Zara were preparing to initiate the overload sequence when Lyra's transmission came through. "Major Howard, Lieutenant Zara?" Lyra's voice crackled over the comm. "I believe I can adapt my DNA activation procedure to work on Ventaxian physiology. It could unlock hidden abilities in Zara that might allow her to disable the weapon safely." Howard and Zara exchanged glances, hope and fear warring in their eyes. "What are the risks?" Howard asked. Lyra's hesitation was palpable. "The procedure is untested on Ventaxians. There could be significant risks to Zara and to your unborn child." The weight of the decision pressed down on them. The fate of Earth, their unborn child, and the future of human Ventaxian relations hung in the balance. As alarms blared and the space battle raged outside, Howard and Zara faced the most difficult choice of their lives. "What do we do?" Zara whispered, her hand unconsciously moving to her abdomen. Howard looked from Zara to the weapon controls, then back to Zara. The next few moments would shape the destiny of both their species. With a deep breath, he prepared to make his decision. Howard's eyes met Zara's, a silent understanding passing between them. "We'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "Lyra, walk us through the procedure." Lyra's voice crackled over the comm, guiding them step by step as they made their way to the flagship's infirmary. The stark, alien medical bay was a far cry from the sterile human hospitals Howard was used to, but it would have to do. Zara lay on the examination table, her exoskeleton reflecting the harsh light. Howard's hands shook as he attached sensors to her body, following Lyra's instructions. The equipment hummed to life, displaying Zara's vital signs in a confusing array of Ventaxian symbols. "Initiating DNA activation sequence," Lyra announced. "Zara, you may experience some discomfort. Major Howard, monitor her vitals closely." As the procedure began, Zara's body tensed. Her antenna twitched erratically, and she gripped the edges of the table. Howard watched in amazement as a faint glow began to emanate from her exoskeleton. "Zara, how do you feel?" Howard asked, concern etching his features. "I feel different," she gasped. "There's so much information." Suddenly, Zara's eyes widened. She sat up abruptly, her gaze unfocused. "I can sense the ship's systems. It's like I'm connected to everything." Howard helped her to her feet, steadying her as she swayed. "Can you access the weapon controls?" Zara nodded, her antenna quivering. "Follow me." They raced back to the control room, encountering no resistance. Zara's fingers flew over the alien interface, her movements sure and precise. Howard watched in awe as she bypassed security protocols that had stymied them earlier. "I've found a way to safely disable the weapon," Zara announced. Brian, I need you to manually override these specific systems while I reroute the power flow. Working in tandem, they methodically shut down the terraforming weapon. As the last system went offline, a wave of relief washed over them. We did it, Howard breathed. Their victory was short-lived. Alarms blared, and the ship shuddered under the impact of weapons fire. General Wazen's voice came through their comms. "The weapon's down! All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship's primary systems." Howard and Zara shared a look of tenacity. "We need to take out the power core," Zara said. "I can guide us there." They moved through the ship's corridors with newfound purpose. Zara's enhanced abilities allowed her to manipulate internal systems, sealing off sections to block pursuing guards and rerouting power to aid their progress. As they approached the power core, a squad of elite Ventaxian guards ambushed them. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, forcing Howard and Zara to take cover behind a bulkhead. "Zara, can you do anything about those guards?" Howard shouted over the din of battle. Zara's antennae twitched as she concentrated. Suddenly, the ship's internal defense turrets swiveled and opened fire on the Ventaxian guards. Caught in the crossfire, the guards fell back, allowing Howard and Zara to push forward. They reached the power core, a massive, pulsing structure that dominated the chamber. Zara interfaced with the controls, her fingers dancing across the panel. "I'm initiating a cascading overload," she explained. "It will cripple the ship without causing a catastrophic explosion." As the power core began to destabilize, they felt the ship lurch. "We need to get out of here," Howard urged. They fought their way to the hangar bay, Zara using her new abilities to clear their path. As they reached a Ventaxian shuttle, Zara doubled over, clutching her abdomen. "Brian," she gasped, "the baby! I think the procedure accelerated the pregnancy." Howard's eyes widened in panic. He helped Zara into the shuttle, strapping her into the co-pilot's seat before taking the controls. The hangar bay doors opened, revealing the chaos of the space battle outside. Howard piloted the shuttle through the maelstrom of energy weapons and exploding ships. Behind them, the Ventaxian flagship erupted in a series of explosions, taking out several nearby warships. As they approached Earth, Zara's contractions intensified. Howard divided his attention between flying and monitoring Zara's condition, his heart racing. The comm system crackled to life. General Wazen's voice filled the cabin. "Major Howard, we've dealt a significant blow to the invasion force, but our long-range sensors have detected a second wave of Ventaxian ships entering the solar system. It's larger than the first." Howard's stomach dropped. "Understood, General. We're headed back to Earth now. Zara needs immediate medical attention." As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Howard could see the aftermath of the ground battle below. Smoke rose from several cities, but he also noticed pockets of resistance where human forces seemed to be pushing back. They landed at a makeshift military base outside of what remained of New York City. Medical personnel rushed to meet them, whisking Zara away on a stretcher. Howard followed, his heart pounding from the events of the past few hours. In the hastily assembled medical tent, he found Corporal Rodriguez coordinating with a group of soldiers. The corporal's eyes widened as he saw Howard. "Major, your team's success up there gave us the opening we needed down here. We've managed to reclaim key positions in the city." Howard nodded distractedly, his gaze fixed on the curtained-off area where doctors were tending to Zara. "That's good work, Corporal, but we're not out of the woods yet. There's another wave coming, bigger than before." Rodriguez's face hardened. "Then we'll be ready for them, sir." A commotion from behind the curtain drew their attention. Howard rushed over to find Zara surrounded by a mix of human and Ventaxian medical staff, all looking bewildered. "Major Howard," one of the human doctors approached him, "your partner's pregnancy is progressing at an unprecedented rate. We're not sure what to expect." As if on cue, Zara let out a cry of pain. Howard moved to her side, taking her hand in his. Her exoskeleton was glowing brighter now, pulsing in time with her contractions. "Lyra," Howard called out, spotting the Ventaxian scientist entering the tent. "What's happening to her?" Lyra's compound eyes widened as she took in the scene. The DNA activation procedure must have affected the fetus as well. This could be the key to creating a new generation of defenders, human and Ventaxian alike. As Zara's labor intensified, alarms began to sound throughout the base. Outside, soldiers scrambled to defensive positions. The second wave of the Ventaxian invasion force had arrived, and the battle for Earth was about to enter its most critical phase. Howard stood at the nexus of it all, his partner giving birth to a child that could change everything, a new invasion force bearing down on them, and the weight of two species' futures resting on his shoulders. As Zara squeezed his hand with another contraction, he knew that whatever came next would define not just their lives, but the fate of both their worlds. Worlds. He squeezed Zara's hand, steeling himself for what was to come. Suddenly, the comm system crackled to life. General Wazen's urgent voice filled the medical tent. "Major Howard, we have a critical situation. Our long-range sensors have detected the second wave of Ventaxian ships entering the solar system. It's much larger than we anticipated." Howard's blood ran cold. He looked at Zara, her exoskeleton still pulsing with an otherworldly glow, then back at the comm unit. "Understood, General. What's our status?" "Our defenses are stretched thin after the initial invasion. We're ill-prepared for a threat of this magnitude," Wazen replied, his voice grim. Howard's mind raced. They needed a secure location with advanced medical facilities to handle Zara's unique situation. "General, I'm rerouting our shuttle to the Rocky Mountain base. Can you have Dr. Elena Martinez and her team meet us there?" "Affirmative, Major. I'll see you there shortly." With practiced efficiency, Howard coordinated the transfer of Zara and the medical team to the waiting shuttle. As they lifted off, he could see the chaos unfolding below. Fires still burning in parts of the city, troops mobilizing, civilians being evacuated. The flight to the Rocky Mountain base was tense. Zara's contractions intensified, and Howard divided his attention between piloting and monitoring her condition. As they approached the hidden facility nestled in the mountains, he saw a team already waiting on the landing pad. The moment they touched down, Dr. Elena Martinez and her team of human and Ventaxian specialists rushed forward. They quickly but carefully transferred Zara to a hover stretcher. "Major Howard," Dr. Martinez said as they hurried through the base's corridors, "we've prepared our most advanced medical bay for this procedure. We'll need to perform an emergency C-section." Howard nodded, his throat tight. "Do whatever you need to do, Doctor." As they reached the medical bay, Howard was directed to a decontamination chamber. He watched helplessly through a window as the medical team prepped Zara for surgery. The room was a blend of human and Ventaxian technology, a testament to the cooperation between their species. "Major Howard," a voice called from behind him. He turned to see General Wazen approaching, accompanied by several high-ranking military officials. "General," Howard acknowledged, torn between his duty and his desire to stay with Zara. Wazen seemed to sense his conflict. "I know this is a difficult time, but we need to strategize against this second wave. Every minute counts." With a last look at Zara, Howard followed the group to a nearby war room. The room was dominated by a large holographic display showing the approaching Ventaxian fleet. "The situation is dire," one of the human admirals began. "Our planetary defenses are still reeling from the first attack. We don't have the firepower to repel a force of this size." Howard studied the display, his mind working furiously. "What if we could level the playing field?" he asked. All eyes turned to him. "Lyra's DNA activation procedure. It worked on Zara. What if we could use it on a larger scale?" The room erupted in discussion. General Wazen raised a hand for silence. "It's risky, but it might be our best option. Major, can you contact Dr. Lyra?" Within minutes, they had Lyra on a secure channel. The Ventaxian scientists listened intently as Howard outlined their proposal. "It's possible," Lyra said, her antennae twitching in thought. "I've been analyzing the data from Zara's transformation. With a team of human geneticists, I believe we could refine the process for both human and Ventaxian physiology." "How quickly can you set up?" Howard asked. "Give me 6 hours in a secure lab space. We'll start with a small group of volunteers." General Wazen nodded. "You'll have everything you need, Doctor. Major Howard, begin selecting candidates. We'll need experienced combat personnel." As the meeting adjourned, Howard's comm unit buzzed. It was Dr. Martinez. Major, you need to get down here. It's time. Howard raced back to the medical bay, his heart pounding. He arrived just as Dr. Martinez was completing the C-section. The room fell silent for a moment, then a sharp cry filled the air. "Congratulations, Major," Dr. Martinez said, her eyes crinkling with a smile above her surgical mask. "You have a daughter." Howard moved closer, his eyes wide with wonder. The baby was unlike anything he had ever seen, a perfect blend of human and Ventaxian features. Her skin had a faint, iridescent sheen, and tiny antennae poked out from her forehead. "She's beautiful," he whispered, gently taking her in his arms. He looked over at Zara, who was being tended to by the medical team. Their eyes met, filled with love and a shared sense of awe. "What will you name her?" Dr. Martinez asked. Howard and Zara exchanged a look of understanding. "Aurora," Zara said softly. "Her name is Aurora." As Howard cradled his newborn daughter, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The survival of both their species, the future that Aurora represented, it all hung in the balance. The next few hours would be crucial. He gently handed Aurora back to the medical team and leaned down to kiss Zara's forehead. "Rest," he said. "I'll be back soon." Leaving the medical bay, Howard made his way to the temporary lab where Lyra and her team were setting up. He found Corporal Rodriguez outside, looking nervous but determined. "Corporal," Howard greeted him, "I take it you've volunteered for the procedure." Rodriguez nodded. "Yes, sir. Figure my combat experience might come in handy with whatever enhancements this process brings." Howard clasped his shoulder. "Your courage is appreciated, Corporal. We're all counting on you." As they entered the lab, Lyra looked up from her work. Major Howard, we're nearly ready for our first subject. Corporal, if you'll step this way, please." Howard watched as Rodriguez was prepped for the procedure. Lyra's team worked with practiced efficiency, attaching sensors and preparing injections. "Initiating DNA activation sequence," Lyra announced. The room hummed with energy as the procedure began. Rodriguez's body tensed, his face contorting in discomfort. Then gradually, a faint glow began to emanate from his skin. "It's working," Lyra said, her compound eyes wide with excitement. "Vital signs are stable. Genetic markers are responding as expected." As the procedure concluded, Rodriguez sat up, looking dazed but alert. "How do you feel, Corporal?" Howard asked. Rodriguez flexed his hands, a look of amazement crossing his face. "Strong, sir. Really strong. And I can sense the electronic systems around us. It's incredible." Howard nodded, a mix of hope and apprehension filling him. "Rest up, Corporal. We'll need you at your best soon." Leaving the lab, Howard made his way back to the war room. The holographic display now showed the Ventaxian fleet entering the outer reaches of the solar system. Earth's meager defenses were mobilizing to meet them. General Wazin approached, his expression grim. "The enemy fleet has begun its assault on our outer defenses. We're deploying our enhanced soldiers to key locations, but we're still vastly outnumbered." Howard studied the display, watching as Earth's forces engaged the invaders. The enhanced soldiers, led by Rodriguez, were making a significant impact, but the sheer number of Ventaxian ships was overwhelming. "We need a new strategy," Howard said, his mind racing. "General, what if we—" He was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside the war room. A junior officer burst in, his eyes wide. "Sirs, we're receiving reports of Ventaxian soldiers attempting to defect. They're requesting asylum with our forces." Howard and Wazin exchanged shocked glances. This unexpected development could change everything. As they turned back to the holographic display, watching the battle unfold with this new variable in play, Howard knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of both their species. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, and the lines between ally and enemy were becoming increasingly blurred. With Aurora's birth, the enhanced soldiers, and now these defections, the future was more uncertain than ever. Howard steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that every decision from this point on would shape the course of history. Howard's eyes snapped back to the holographic display as alarms blared throughout the war room. A massive energy signature was detected, emanating from the heart of the Ventaxian fleet. "Sir," a technician called out, her voice trembling, We're picking up readings consistent with a superweapon powering up. Its energy output, it's off the charts. General Wazen's face paled. Estimated impact? The technician swallowed hard. If unleashed at full power, it could potentially tear the Earth apart. A heavy silence fell over the room. Howard's mind raced, weighing their options. They were outgunned, outmanned, and now faced with a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Traditional tactics wouldn't cut it. They needed something unprecedented, something that could change the entire paradigm of this conflict. His thoughts turned to Aurora, his newborn daughter who represented the impossible union of human and Ventaxian. An idea began to form. "General," Howard said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I have a plan. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." Wazen nodded, gesturing for him to continue. "We broadcast a galaxy-wide message," Howard explained. "We reveal Aurora's existence to everyone, human, Ventaxian, and any other species out there. We show them that cooperation between our species isn't just possible, it's happening right now." The general's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "A bold move, Major, but how do we ensure the message reaches far enough?" "Leave that to me," Howard replied. "I'll need Zara's help and access to our most powerful transmission array." As the team scrambled to set up the broadcast, Howard outlined the second part of his plan. "While the transmission goes out, I'll lead a strike team to infiltrate the Ventaxian command ship, controlling the superweapon. Our enhanced soldiers should be able to break through their defenses." Corporal Rodriguez stepped forward, his skin still faintly glowing from the DNA activation procedure. "Count me in, sir." Howard nodded, grateful for the man's courage. "Assemble a team of our best enhanced soldiers. We move out in 10 minutes. Racing back to the medical bay, Howard found Zara sitting up, cradling Aurora. Dr. Martinez and Lyra stood nearby, monitoring their vital signs. "Zara," Howard said, quickly explaining the situation, "we need your help. Can you interface with our systems to guide us through the Ventaxian ship?" Zara's antenna twitched, her compound eyes shimmering with purpose. "Of course. I'll be your eyes and ears in there." Howard leaned in, pressing his forehead against hers. "Thank you. And Zara, we need to show Aurora to the galaxy. It might be our only chance to stop this war." Zara looked down at their daughter, then back at Howard. She nodded. "Do it. Show them what we can achieve together." With a final kiss to both Zara and Aurora, Howard raced to join his strike team. They boarded a stealth shuttle, their enhanced bodies humming with nervous energy. As they approached the Ventaxian command ship, Howard's comm crackled to life. It was General Wazen. "The broadcast is ready, Major. We're waiting for your signal to begin transmission." "Roger that," Howard replied. He turned to his team. "This is it. The fate of Earth rests on what we do in the next few minutes. Let's make it count." The shuttle docked with the Ventaxian ship, and the strike team burst into action. Enhanced strength and reflexes allowed them to plow through the first wave of defenders with shocking speed. "Left corridor," Zara's voice guided them through their comms. "Watch for a security barrier in 50 meters. They fought their way deeper into the ship, Rodriguez taking point with his newfound abilities. Howard marveled at how the corporal seemed to anticipate enemy movements, as if he could sense the electronic signals of their weapons before they fired. As they neared the weapon control room, resistance intensified. Ventaxian elite guards swarmed them from all sides. In the chaos of battle, Howard saw Rodriguez take a hit, then another. The corporal's enhanced body kept moving, but Howard could see the toll it was taking. "Sir!" Rodriguez called out, gesturing toward a narrow passage. "That's our way to the control room, but it's heavily guarded." Howard assessed the situation quickly. They were running out of time. The superweapon could fire at any moment. Before he could formulate a plan, Rodriguez made the decision for him. The corporal charged forward, drawing enemy fire. "Go!" he shouted. "I'll clear the path." Howard watched in horror as Rodriguez threw himself into the fray, his enhanced body moving with inhuman speed. The corporal's sacrifice created the opening they needed, and Howard led the remaining team members through. They burst into the weapon control room, quickly subduing the Ventaxian technicians inside. Howard raced to the main console, his heart pounding. "Zara, I'm at the controls," he said, staring at the alien interface. "Talk me through this." Zara's calm voice filled his ear, guiding him through a complex sequence of commands. His fingers flew over the console, following her instructions precisely. A deep rumble shook the ship as the superweapon's power began to ebb. Alarms blared, and Ventaxian voices shouted in confusion. Howard held his breath, watching the energy readings drop. "It's done," Zara confirmed. "The weapon is powering down." Relief washed over Howard, but he knew their mission wasn't over yet. "General Wazin, the superweapon is neutralized. Begin the broadcast now." Back on Earth, in the medical bay, Dr. Martinez and Lyra watched in amazement as Aurora began to glow. The infant's tiny antennae twitched, and a soft, pulsing light emanated from her skin. "What's happening?" Dr. Martinez asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her shock. Lyra's compound eyes widened. "It appears she's creating some kind of psionic field. It's amplifying our broadcast signal." The message beamed out across the galaxy, Aurora's unique energy signature carrying it further than they had ever thought possible. On screens throughout the Ventaxian fleet, on distant planets, and in the farthest reaches of space, beings of all kinds watched in awe. They saw Aurora, a living bridge between two species. They saw humans and Ventaxians working side by side. They saw the DNA evidence proving what many had thought impossible. On the Ventaxian flagship, the High Command watched in stunned silence. The image of Aurora, glowing with power they couldn't comprehend, shook them to their core. Throughout the fleet, Ventaxian soldiers laid down their weapons. Confusion and uncertainty rippled through their ranks as the foundation of their beliefs crumbled. Seizing the moment, General Wazin opened a direct channel to the Ventaxian High Command. "This is General Wazin of Earth," he began, his voice steady. "As you can see, our species are not as incompatible as once believed. I propose an immediate ceasefire and the beginning of diplomatic talks." The Ventaxian commander, faced with widespread rebellion and the undeniable evidence before him, saw no choice. "We accept your proposal, General. Let us end this conflict and explore this new reality together." As the fighting stopped, Howard guided his team back to their shuttle. The Ventaxian ship, so recently a battlefield, was now eerily quiet. They returned to Earth, where a new chapter in history was already beginning to unfold. Howard rushed to the medical bay, finding Zara and Aurora surrounded by an awestruck medical team. He swept them both into his arms, overcome with relief and love. "You did it," Zara whispered, her antenna gently brushing his cheek. "Both of you." Howard looked down at Aurora, still glowing softly. "No," he replied. "We did it. All of us, together." As they stood there, a family reunited, they knew that the real work was just beginning. Peace treaties would need to be drafted, alliances forged, and a new understanding between species cultivated. But in that moment, holding his hybrid daughter and his Ventaxian partner, Howard allowed himself to feel hope for the future, a future that was suddenly full of possibilities.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.